Thank you very much, guys. We had that very moving welcome to country earlier from Glenn, and I'm now moved to say that we're going to move quickly from the sacred to the profane. I've been reading Christopher Hitchens' work for many years now. I almost said religiously, but I thought better of that. In the past decade, I've been lucky enough to interview him on many occasions by satellite link from remote studios in various parts of the United States. And because we tend to do that live, for him, where he's sitting, it usually turns out to be some ungodly hour. But, excuse another pun, as we know, Mr. Hitchens is a rather ungodly person. Now, with Christopher Hitchens being the sort of fellow that he is, with a kind of healthy appetites that he has, and frankly that we expect of him, he has on occasion been somewhat the worse for wear during those interviews. There was one particularly memorable occasion when he spent much of the interview doing a very amusing live commentary on the technical expertise of the sound man and the camera crew. That's when I knew that one of his hidden talents was for John Cleese impersonations. Now, there is, I suspect, a very special Hitchens archive somewhere out there in some corner of YouTube, so let me know if you find it, will you? But I have to say, cometh the hour, cometh the man, because no matter how little sleep he's had, no matter what his state of occasional dishevelment is, and no matter how incompetent the studio crew, Christopher Hitchens has always risen to the occasion. He's a man who must be heard and who should be heard. And I may be somewhat biased here, but I regard him as among the handful of public intellectuals in the world who have the capacity to really lead a new public discourse and the courage and the inclination to adopt contrarian positions and defend them with great passion and great subtlety. Moreover, Christopher Hitchens has never, to my knowledge, ducked a debate, although many of his opponents have ducked debates with him, and having seen him in action up close, I frankly don't blame them. I met Christopher for the first time in New York on September the 11th, 2002. It was our job to sit together for a few hours and talk in front of a live camera on a windswept building across from that ghastly hole in the ground where the World Trade Center and its surrounding buildings had 1 year before been amputated from the New York skyline by the actions of a small group of Islamic terrorists. Now, when I was asked by the ABC to go to New York and do the first anniversary broadcast, I had only one condition, and that is, I'll do it if we can persuade Christopher Hitchens to join us. The reason for that was simple. Christopher had thought more deeply and more profoundly about September 11 and its implications than anyone I'd read or heard talking about it at that time, and his own battles with Islamic extremism dated back to the fatwa against his friend, the writer Salman Rushdie. And you can see consistent streams of thought about God and religion flowing through the book that he's here to talk about tonight and the ideas that he's going to talk about tonight. The book is God is Not Great, How Religion Poisons Everything. If you haven't read it, I can tell you that Islam is not the only nor even the primary target. This is not his satanic verses. Christopher is an equal opportunity and multi-faith debunker. So, if you're a Christian, Roman, Catholic, Orthodox or otherwise, if you're a Hindu, if you're a religious Jew, if you're a Muslim, Buddhist, a Gnostic or even just an occasional visitor to a Shinto shrine, you can expect to be offended or at least have your views challenged in ways you perhaps didn't expect. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podium journalist, writer, lifelong contrarian and militant atheist, Christopher Hitchens.
Thank you, Your Reverence, for that suspiciously terse, grudging introduction. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, very much for coming. Thank you for laying on an evening of weather to remind me of my English boyhood. In other ways, to make me feel at home as I always do when I visit Sydney, which is the only place I've so far visited where if you stay in the neighbourhood I am staying, you go for your daytime, or it might be a nighttime constitutional walk, and you wonder exactly how to get back. And you stop someone and say, "Excuse me," you find yourself saying, "Am I headed for the rocks?" Question I've asked myself many a time and on many a midnight stroll, but only in Sydney do they say, "Yeah, no worries." Good place for dangerous ideas, a chit-chat, in other words. A risk-taking kind of a spot. Rocks? No worries. I'm sorry for that reason, partly for that reason, to have missed your darkness at dawn moment the other day, because a lot of my early training in the apocalyptic came from the study of Australian letters. When I was a boy, I was very fond of the writing of Neville Shute, Town Like Alice. I particularly loved In the Wet, No Highway. Remember No Highway? Perhaps I'm giving away my age a bit. But of course, and I think most memorably, On the Beach, where the last people on Earth wait in Australia to see what kind of death is going to be brought to them on the prevailing winds. There were lots of ways, I now realize, tons of ways in which Neville Shute couldn't write. But he could write about the inevitable and about the possibility of extinction. In other words, that nature might not know we were here. The great challenge to our self-esteem, to our solipsism, that there could be a point in evolution where evolution that hadn't noticed we'd arrived wouldn't even notice that we'd gone either. And beautifully done, as some of you will have seen, by Stanley Kubrick on the screen, where as the inevitable gets nearer all the time, the churches decide it's time for a moment of uplift. And out come the Salvation Army girls with their tambourines and their tins, and the churches throw open their doors, and there's a big banner saying, "Repent. There is still time, brother," it reads. And it mocks what's coming, and it doesn't know it's doing it. Last attempt to fill up those empty spaces in the church. And at the close, the streets are empty, and it's a dusty, howling wilderness. But the banner, "There is still time, brother," is still flapping in the wind to mock all our illusions. And it's the attempt to live without illusions that I believe is the most dangerous, but the most worthwhile, and in some ways the most enjoyable undertaking, despite its risks, of all. And that's why I'm here, and that's why you're nice to have me. Now, cosmology is a real bastard in a lot of ways. It's made it ever harder, has been making it ever harder for us to think too highly of ourselves. Ever since Galileo deposed us from our very conceited position, the one we'd chosen for ourselves, of course, and had pointed out to us by a comforting church at the center of what was thought of as creation. Now it's almost a commonplace because of the knife edge of climatology on which we understand ourselves to live, and when we see the rest of our tiny little suburb of a solar system, an unimportant speck in an unimportant suburb of a little-known galaxy, just in our neighborhood, every other planet is either too hot to live in or too cold, and lots of our planet is one of those or the other, and the rest is on a knife edge, as we've increasingly come to understand. And so the probability of our being here forever is nil, and the possibility that we'll last as long as our planet isn't that great. But suppose we do. Here's something to cheer you up. You thought I came just to make you laugh or just to make you cry? Not a bit of it. Before I'm done, well, we'll see. I was at a festival in Hay-on-Wye. I don't know if you've ever been there, a wonderful town on the English-Welsh border, where there's now a beautiful annual literary festival a couple of years ago. And one of the speakers was Sir Martin Rees. Sir Martin is the professor of cosmology and astrophysics at Cambridge University. And he's also got the wonderful title of the Astronomer Royal, which even a Republican like myself can imagine wanting to have. Just as I live in Washington, I've never wanted a political job, but if I was to be given grace and favor by the president, it would be the Bureau of Alcohol, Firearms and Tobacco. Anyway, I can't be the Astronomer Royal, but I can quote what Sir Martin said in an extraordinary speech called